All right, we are live, baby. That's what I'm talking about. What is up, my fellow nerds and gangsters? Welcome back to the Spiffy Nerd Herder channel. I am Danny, and today we are getting in down and dirty with The Hobbit Part 3, Battle of the Five Armies. That is continuing this week of trilogy ending films. So yesterday we looked at Return of the King from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Today we're looking at The Hobbit. Tomorrow is Revenge of the Sith. Then we got Return of the Jedi. Then The Rise of Skywalker. And then we have... Oh boy. I already forget. Excuse me, let me pop that up real quick. Then we have your choice. Either Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade or Toy Story 3. So, that should be pretty awesome. Charlie, what it is, my friend. All right, so to start off, I just want to show one little clip, and as always, there's no sound to avoid copyright. But I just love this part in the film. It's when the Elven King, he gets a bunch of orcs onto the antlers of the moose that he's riding, and boom, chops up all of their heads. So it's pretty awesome. I love it. I just thought it was so cool when I saw it in theaters. Okay, Mythic Brick says, basic movie thoughts. Loved it in theaters when you were 11. Looking back, it's still enjoyable. And this is a lot of necessary things that this movie needed to hit concerning characters and story. You know, one of the big... I was going back and looking at some of the reviews, the original reviews from the film when it came out in 2014, I want to say. And a lot of the people decried the lack of Bilbo in the film. In his arc. I didn't necessarily feel that way as I was watching it, but I can also see their points. So, Mythic Bricks, if you're thinking about need to hit, maybe a little more Bilbo in the Hobbits, because sorry, it's probably rubbing up against my shirt here. If you thought we needed a little bit more Bilbo, let me know. Sorry, guys. I didn't think about that when I wore this shirt. Okay, but one of the things that I did feel is that Thorin Oakenshield. So if you're unfamiliar with the Hobbit story, I did read the book, years and years and years and years and years and years ago. I don't really remember that much. But the films, basically, Bilbo Baggins is the Hobbit, played by Martin Freeman, and he goes on a journey with a group of dwarves to reclaim their homeland of Erebor that has been basically taken over by Smaug the dragon, voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. And they're taking him there because they need him, he's small and can get around places. They need him to find the Arkenstone and to get past the dragon and do all this stuff because he's small and he can't be seen. No, they just need to get past the dragon. I don't know, something like that. But anyways, they get there, they reclaim their homeland, the dragon gets killed at the beginning of the Battle of the Five Armies, but the king, Thorin Oakenshield, this dwarf, has gone from this person that you really like to this person you absolutely despise. He becomes totally power hungry. He's obsessed with finding the Arkenstone, which is like the king's jewel. He's obsessed with all this money. The people of Lake Town, who belong to this city that Smaug destroys, they're coming to him for help, but he's saying, "Gangsters, get off my property." Basically, I don't want you. This is Erebor, where Thorin is holed up. But basically, Thorin eventually will get called out by all of his kinsmen, saying, "You've changed. You're a punk. You're letting everybody die for us." And then Thorin has this basically one turning point moment where he realizes that he's become power hungry, and he changes, and then he's a great guy from then on. It's a very abrupt character change, especially going from one extreme to the other so quickly. I didn't really care for it that much. I thought it was too abrupt, too quick, but I could be wrong. Okay. What's up, Dale? Mythic Brick says overused CGI and pressure on Jackson contributed to this. Still fun to laugh on the watch of the Tolkien hexology. That Gold Taco needs to go rethink her life. Titanium Ranger. Keep in mind, Peter Jackson was rushed by Warner Brothers, I believe, and originally Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct, but dropped out because it took so long to get the movie greenlit. And that is absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, despite the flaws of this film, it's incredible. There were some days when Peter Jackson was on set and they literally did not have script pages, and they just had to come up with it. So yeah, Titanium Ranger is 150,000% correct. You can't blame Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson is one of my favorite directors. I told a story yesterday how I met him when I was at USC, and it blew my mind just shaking his hand. And so, yeah, you can't blame Peter Jackson. The films definitely were rushed. He complained about that. He felt that they were rushed. And yeah, I mean, the script wasn't even, like I said, from what I hear, sometimes they really didn't even have completed script pages. And Guillermo del Toro was originally supposed to direct. It would have been interesting to see what a Del Toro Lord of the Rings would have looked like. I guess we'll never know. So I think these movies were the best they could have been given the circumstances that they were put under to make them. We know Peter Jackson straight up is legit and rules because of what he did with Lord of the Rings. And so, yeah, you can't lay the blame at his feet. Now, Mythic Brick says overuse of CGI. In general, I enjoy the CGI in these films because A, it looks good. B, it's a world that doesn't really exist, and so I like it. I mean, I love the scene where, let's see if I can just kind of find it. I mean, the White Orc looks fantastic, but when let's see here, if I can find it. When they're riding up the mountain goats up to the top of the mountain to take out the White Orc. When I first saw it, I'm like, that's so ridiculous, but it's also so cool at the same time. These dwarves are riding these like basically roid-raged mountain goats up the cliff face. All right, so Charlie says, it's so cool that you got to meet Peter Jackson regardless. Always loved these. I really want to go back and watch them in order. Honestly, after watching this third one, it's been a long time since I've seen Unexpected Journey and the Desolation of Smaug. I know I've seen Unexpected Journey like twice. Desolation of Smaug, maybe just once. Battle of the Five Armies is probably like my third time. I really enjoy Battle of the Five Armies. I just remember enjoying it the most. But yeah, I want to go back and watch it again, and then I want to watch Lord of the Rings, especially in anticipation of the new Amazon show. I'm an acquaintance with one of the showrunners, J.D. Payne. I've had lunch with him and talked with him a couple times. He's a really, really cool guy. He contributed to writing Star Trek 3, and he's a really great writer. And he's one of the writers in Hollywood that has written a ton of scripts, but very little of them have been produced. And before you say, oh, then he must be a horrible writer, that's actually really common. I've heard different stats thrown out, but for every like 10 screenplays you write, maybe only one of them gets written. Like I've written like 3 or 4 full-length screenplays, but none of them have gotten written yet. So I guess I got to write 6 more. But J.D. Payne and his partners who are doing the Amazon Lord of the Rings show, I have high hopes. So I kind of want to go back and watch now the Hobbit trilogy. I do got to get my hands on the extended version because, well, I got to. And then watch the Lord of the Rings just to get pumped for that. I'm excited to show my kids these movies because I think they'll really love them. A little bit too violent for a 6-year-old at this point, though, I think. All right, Jaden Labadier says, the CG is fine most of the time. It's just so jarring compared to how real Lord of the Rings feels. I think most of the complaints about the CG is more about the production design. Lord of the Rings feels real. Hobbit does not. Jaden, you mentioned some of the CG. A lot of the green screen work isn't that great. It's not solid at all. If I can find, I can't find an example right off the bat. But some of the stuff that doesn't feel real action-wise is like, this bit where Legolas sticks his sword in the head of the dwarf and uses it to basically like a joystick to remote control this troll. to make him knock over this tower. It's like, okay, that's a little unrealistic. And then, of course, we got the famous bit where where Legolas Greenleaf, my boy, Orlando Bloom, is running up the falling stones. I mean, when I was watching Return of the King, that certainly had some of the most outrageous Legolas moments where he's sliding down the tusk of the Oliphant, where he's doing all these crazy things. This, though, is like beyond crazy. And so, Jaden, I'm assuming that these are some of the moments where you think it doesn't really feel real. But some of the production design, some of the times it did feel a little bit more fake. And part of me also thinks it's the red camera. The red camera has a very distinct look, and it's a gorgeous camera. I have nothing negative to say about the red cameras. I have family members that work for Red. I really like Red, but it does have a very clean look, which is great. However, The Lord of the Rings was shot on 35 millimeter film, and that has a lot of gray and has a little bit softer focus because that's just the way film looks, and it has a lot of cinematographers use the term organic. It has a more organic look to it. Digital does not have that. It's very clean. There's no grain, and so I think that clean, crisp look that the red camera has, which again is great, maybe wasn't best served with The Hobbit, because it is this film it is this world that's meant to be gritty. It's meant to be real. It's meant to be ancient, and film was better suited to portray that feeling to it. So that's one of the things that I noticed, particularly when watching these movies, that it was even though the production design was dirty, it still felt clean because the image was clean. Okay. All right. Titanium Ranger says, the appendices, I think it's called, behind the scenes material on all the extended editions for all the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings films that are interesting and fun to watch and very educational for film learners. I'm glad you brought that up, Titanium, because yesterday we talked a little bit about the appendices for the Lord of the Rings, and they are like basically the most amazing film school of all time. They are so good. They are so in depth. And I have not watched the Hobbit ones, so clearly I got to do that because I strongly believe you can learn anything from any film. No movie is bad. Every movie has good parts. Every movie has things you can learn from. And so I got to watch that. I don't know. I've never even thought to watch those. So, that's eBay might be calling my name after this to find a used Blu-ray sets of the extended versions of The Hobbit so I can go and watch the appendices. Glad you brought this up. I highly recommend watching these to anyone. They're by far the best behind-the-scenes filmmaking I've ever seen. Okay. Charlie says that Legolas must have had some major cardio. Dude, you know it, man. Legolas is a beast. Dalek Scientist says, can you swap Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi so it can be in released order? For the watch list. Yeah, we can do that. Why not? Any particular reason? Let's see here. Start with Solo, Rogue One, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith. Wow, we want to go really in release order there. They're talking about that tomorrow. We're starting the next 3 nights are the Star Wars trilogy ending films. Okay, but Dalek does say Revenge of the Sith is his favorite. If anybody's opposed to that, let me know. I thought it'd be fun to watch them in. I don't know, Dalek. I got to think about that. Because I thought it'd be fun to watch them in chronological order. Okay, but back to The Hobbit. I want to know some of the other parts that you liked, other parts that you disliked. So people have been talking about production design didn't feel quite as organic. That overuse of CGI. Definitely, though, it's safe to say that this film had more CGI than a lot of Lord of the Rings films. A lot of CG characters. Like, I was always kind of disappointed that the White Orc, which is home slice here. Let's see here if I can. Sorry, small cursor. I loved this part too, by the way. When the dude, I can't remember his name, falls off the eagle and turns into the bear and starts shanking people. I love that part. Okay, but when you got the White Orc, Come on. I was always disappointed that he was CGI because to me that's a character that can easily be prosthetics. And when you got the Urukai from the original Lord of the Rings and the orcs, and they were so clearly just awesome prosthetics, it really added to it. And so, one of the things maybe Titanium is, or Jaden was saying about production design, I think maybe that's a big part. That all of the orcs in these films are not prosthetics. They're not real. They're not really on set, and you can tell. It had having somebody in prosthetics. There's a feeling to it because you just know it's real. You know that there's literally somebody in front of the camera. But with this dude, no matter how good he looks, there's always going to be that kind of that uncanny valley problem in the back of your head, always knowing that he isn't fake, that it is not real, that this is just movie trickery, movie magic, or what is this new devilry, as Boromir says in Fellowship of the Ring. It's devilry, I tell you. CG characters. So I was always disappointed by that. I was disappointed by it again watching it. I don't know why they chose to do it that way. Maybe they thought they could get a cooler character because it had worked so well in Lord of the Rings. Okay, back to the comments. Dackle Taco's taking notes while watching movies. Jaden says, didn't know they shot on red. That explains a lot. Doesn't help that they shot in 60 FPS as well. I think they shot in 48, but it might have been 60. In my experience, it's typically easier to hide CG elements on film because of the reasons you mentioned. And again, those reasons are, and Jaden's correct, with film, with 35 millimeter, you do get a slightly softer image, and a lot of cinematographers will actually purposely put a softening filter with their digital cameras to give it that slightly soft look. And it's very slight, but without it, the image is so dang crisp that it looks, to our trained eye that's been so used to watching film, it looks weird. And they did shoot at, he says 60, I think it was 48, but whatever it was, they shot at a higher frame rate, which makes it more replicates the way the human eye looks. So the human eye, from what I heard, is about roughly 60 frames a second. That's kind of what we see. Film is 24 frames a second. So it always has had a different look, which is why you kind of get stuttering when you pan. But with The Hobbit, you don't get that stuttering when it pans because it's at such a higher frame rate. And so there's that aspects I do like. Like, I don't dig the stuttering during a slow pan on film. I hate it. Can't stand it. It makes me sick. I mean, I vomit on my cinematographer's shoes when I see it. But there are other aspects I don't like about the high frame rates. So you win some, you lose some. Okay, what do we got? We got also Lord Arnold said, I really like The Hobbit, but it wasn't near as good as Lord of the Rings. And that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I enjoy the film. I really liked Battle of the Five Armies. Because, guys, it's freaking 2 hours of a straight-up battle. I mean, how can you go wrong? I love it. But Charlie says something about Deathstroke or something. Dale says they should have brought back puppets. Titanium Ranger says, another thing, too, with the Hobbit films, they were originally going to be just 2 films, and I believe it wasn't until the middle of production that they made the decision to go into 3. Yeah, and it's funny because, when they were first doing Lord of the Rings, too, they talked about this in the appendices behind the scenes for Lord of the Rings, that they were actually planning on doing Lord of the Rings as 2 films. And when they kind of pitched it to the executives at New Line, they're like, well, isn't there 3 books? Let's make 3 films. And Peter Jackson and his partners were like, and Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, they were like, all right, let's do 3 films, of course. So, yeah, definitely. So they made 3 films, totally worked. But yeah, The Hobbit was originally supposed to be 2 films. And even at that point, you're like, okay, well, the Hobbit book is like a half of a Lord of the Rings book, but okay, I can deal with 2 films. And then they're like, no, let's do 3 films. You're like, all right. So you're feeling like Bilbo says. You feel like, too little butter stretched over too much bread. It just felt like it'd be thin. And there are aspects, of course, that it was thin. Like, for instance, one aspect that I did not dig was the whole Tauriel, dwarf, Legolas love triangle thing. It just, like, I remember when I saw Desolation of Smaug, I never really bought them falling in love with each other. What is it? Philly or Gilly or whatever the dwarf's name is. I get confused. There's so many of them. I never really bought that he and Tauriel would fall in love because it was like they had like he had like a talisman or rock or something that she knew about. I don't know, something weird. But I never really bought it. Not from the books. Felt forced, um, and just didn't wasn't believable to me at least. Doesn't mean that that another person can't like it. Uh, all right, so Jaden, I guess, looked it up. It was shot at 48 frames a second. Um, maybe got 60 because a lot of cameras do shoot in 60 frames, possibly because they shoot in 30 and the next iteration is 60 frames. Titanium Ranger says, which is another reason the Battle of the Five Armies is dragged out. I still like the film because it is one big battle. All right. 3 is almost always better than 1. Yeah, because, like if you look at the story for The Hobbit, would it have worked in one film? Maybe not. I mean, it is a really, really big story. And so would 2 films have been better? Who knows? So it's hard to say. I mean, it's almost like you got to make the film and then determine what works and what doesn't. And it's an expensive proposition. Okay. Let's see here. Charlie says the actor inside the White Orc. The actor inside the White Orc was Manu Bennett. Yeah, the White Orc in Lord of the Rings, right? And the Chief Uruk-hai, which I don't remember his name, in Fellowship of the Ring. But this White Orc for The Hobbit, the Battle of Five Armies, and the whole trilogy was CGI. So, and don't get me wrong, I dig the whole idea that he gets his arm chopped off in the first one, and he just sticks in a blade into his arm because he's just gangster like that, and he's like, "I fear no pain." Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. Look at that. I mean, the guy just got a blade in his arm. It's pretty cool, and I did like how the armor was going like into their flesh, like it wasn't just hanging onto their flesh like a suit of armor, but they actually like stuck it into their flesh. I mean, I think that was pretty cool. I think that was pretty ingenious in the design, but again, they're all CG, so it kind of always looks kind of fake, and it's something that certainly could have still been done with prosthetics. Okay, so what else we got going on here? Dalek says The Hobbit was way less accurate than Lord of the Rings because it is a short book that is just way too drawn out. Much of the plot was made up, and some characters were made up. Yeah, from my understanding, Legolas is not in The Hobbit, so they brought him in, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. Azog is the White Orc, was not even in the original book. Yeah, so this dude wasn't even in the book, but they needed a villain, they needed a primary antagonist, so they went with Homeslice here. So Charlie says, I will send you a clip of when I got to meet him a few years back and talked about the film. I assume you're talking about the actor who played Pig Orc in Return of the King and stuff. One scene that I really, really, really enjoyed in this movie, it's definitely one of my favorite parts, is it all here? It's when Gandalf's been captured and oh, come on, where is it? Maybe I already skipped it. There we go. Gandalf's been captured and Galadriel shows up. Then Elrond and then Sauron, the White. And she just comes in like straight up gangstress that she is. And I mean, I just really like this scene. It's just something pretty cool. And she just shows off her power and it all breaks loose. I don't know if that's in the book or not because, like I said, I read the book years ago. But I thought it was really cool, and it was really cool then to see Saruman say that he was going to go after Sauron. And, of course, we know what then will happen. But it was cool to see Saruman in this trilogy as the good Saruman that he was. One thing I would like to see is a little bit more of how he got corrupted. I mean, we get inklings of it, and maybe that's something you get in the extended versions. If you've seen the extended versions of these films, let me know. But, by the Lord of the Rings, he's just convinced that they can't win the war, and so he's joined with Sauron. Um, and it's really cool to me, his fall, his Count Dooku fall. Okay, so let's see here, and of course, Lady Galadriel is barefoot, because what type of elf wears shoes these days? Elves don't wear shoes. Okay, Titanium Ranger says, one thing I noticed last time I watched the film was there was way too much talking right in the middle of the battlefield. I don't mind talking, but when orcs are around you, like Thorin and Dane's convo. Yeah, so you're. I noticed that same thing too, actually. There's a shot of a guy who has armor inside of his flesh. I thought was pretty cool. But I think, let's see here. I know. So when Thorin and his brothers, they rush out to go to the battlefield, Dane is Thorin's cousin. And yeah, so they're chilling, they're talking in the battlefield, and it's like, okay, I mean, I guess you got the dwarves that are kind of making a circle for them, but they're just talking. Meanwhile, there's this big battle going on all around them. It's like, do the orcs not just say, "Oh, those guys are in timeouts"? They're taking a breather. Let's not bother them. Let's wait till they're done with their conversation. I felt the same way too. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. In The Lord of the Rings, there were more discussions, more justified. Gandalf and Pippin had a discussion about death behind a door. Same with Helm's Deep. I'm glad you brought up the Gandalf-Pippin conversation about death and what happens after death. I love that scene. I love it because it instills hope back into the story. At a moment where all hope is lost, Gandalf presents the big thing of, even if you do die, it's not the end. There's hope even after that. I'm always kind of touched by that scene, and I really, really like it. It's kind of a little bit of Tolkien's, perhaps, theology coming through, but I love that scene. And it's such a welcome narrative breather, too, where, like Titanium says, it's not in the middle of a fight. It's not like we need to come up with a reason for them to talk, but it's justified in the story, as you said it. They're behind a door, they're waiting for death to come. There's nothing they can do. And they have this really deep conversation about what happens after death. I really like it. All right. So, some of the other things, mentioning production design, one of the things I didn't like, and you can shoot me, I didn't like the way the dwarves generally looked in these movies. I thought they were kind of goofy looking. And especially, look at this. This is Scotland Yard here. It's like the guy's got horns and stuff in his beard. I mean, yeah, I guess it's kind of cool. But a lot of it just looked really fake. Like, I didn't like the big Hobbit that had like a braided beard that came down, and the one guy who had the funny hat, and how some of them look like humans while others look like Gimli, from Lord of the Rings. Please, if some dwarves have more like human features than others in the Lord of the Rings mythos, please let me know, because I don't know. But I always felt, sorry, one of my kids is crying. I always felt that, why does this guy look like Gimli, with the really wide, the bigger nose, the kind of more the wrinkled, scrunched face, kind of that what I expect to look as a dwarf. And especially since, in the prologue for the Fellowship of the Ring, when we saw the dwarves raise up their rings, they all kind of had that generally really gruff, dwarf look to them. But then we get in this look, and the guy that Tario falls in love with, and even Thorin himself, they all, like this guy. This guy's a dwarf. Man, I don't think that guy has one prosthetic on him. I mean, as far as I know, he's just a short little dude. So I would have liked to have had them look like dwarves. Okay. Dale says, the horns are off kilter. Which horns? And then, yes, onion ninjas attack your eyes anytime Ganda talks to your heart. Onion ninjas attack your eyes anytime Gandalf talks to your heart. I like that. You should frame that quote and sell it on Etsy or something like that. But but regarding the dwarves, is anybody else bothered by the fact that some of them look like humans and some of them look goofy and some of them look like Gimli? I mean, it's like, make up your freaking mind. What do dwarves look like? I always thought it's just, I don't know. I thought that was weird. Um, the elves, of course, all have that standard just Fabio look to them, which is cool. Uh, let's see here. Luke Evans, great in the film. Um, let's see here. The production design I thought of Erebor was really, really cool. I mean, who wouldn't want that much gold? If you guys all like the video, maybe I can get 1/millionth of that in 27 years. But cool. All right, what else we got? Any other comments regarding Battle of the Five Armies before we end this tonight? So I'd love to hear anything else you guys got to say in general. Like I said, I enjoy the film. Of course, there's always things you can nitpick at in any movie, but I really enjoy it. I thought it's fun. In general, I like the exaggerated action. I do agree that there are moments where it's just a little bit unrealistic, where maybe it takes it a little bit too far. But who am I to say anything? It's still fun, right? My name's not Peter Jackson. I don't have 15 Oscars. Jaden says, I wasn't bothered by it too much, but now that you pointed out, it's a little weird, but I'm cool with it. I assume you're talking about the dwarves. Another picture of our dwarves here. Titanium Ranger. When I first saw it, it took some getting used to with the dwarves' appearances. Hashtag, where the dwarves at? Let's see here. We got the earth movers or the earthworms or whatever that make the big tunnels. It's like, where were those in Lord of the Rings? I don't think those were in the book. Maybe they were. But a lot of stuff that's great. A lot of stuff that's cool. From what I hear, there's only 600 people in the book. There's 50 million in the movie, but that's all cool. All right, guys. So thanks. I'm glad you guys enjoy the film. I'm really happy. We got a few new faces here making some comments. I love it. You guys are awesome. So tomorrow, we'll probably be looking at Revenge of the Sith, Dalek. Hate to say it, but I think I want to go chronological on this one. We're going to continue our week of third movie trilogies with Revenge of the Sith. Then we'll hit up Return of the Jedi, then Rise of Skywalker. And then on Saturday, you get to choose if you want to watch Indiana Jones The Last Crusade, or, which really, let's be honest, Indiana Jones really isn't a trilogy. It's just like an episodic series, but whatever. Indiana Jones The Last Crusade or Toy Story 3. So very different films, but I couldn't decide which one. And how do you feel about the Sauron-Gandalf subplot? I enjoy the Gandalf-Sauron thing. Like I said, it's been a little while since I've seen films 1 and 2 of this, a long time since they came out. So I got to go back and watch it, but I really like the scene where Galadriel, Sauron, and Elrond come and rescue Gandalf. I really, really enjoy that scene. And I enjoy how Sauron comes, and we kind of get to see where the eye comes from. Like the eye is Sauron's body and stuff like that. I think it's really cool. I just thought it was cool when I saw it for the first time. But yeah, I got to see it again. That's my answer. I got to see what happens in the second movie to really kind of understand it more. But I kind of like it. Killer end credit song. Love Billy Boyd's voice. He's got a cool voice. I was reminded about that yesterday when we were watching Return of the King. And then Dale, cool. Yeah, I like the whole Sauron eye thing. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much again for joining. Yeah, hope to see you again tomorrow. Invite your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your dad. Maybe we don't want them, but tell everybody. And let's get a lot of more people. The more people we got, the more fun these streams are. But thanks so much, guys. It's always fun. And just remember to watch a lot of movies because they're awesome. And, well, as I always say, just stay spiffy and don't do anything I wouldn't do twice.